They told you it was aliens, they told you it was impossible, they told you we still don't know the truth. But they were wrong. We know who built the pyramids, we know how they did it. And the truth is more incredible than any myth. No magic, no aliens, just humans, brilliant, organized, and determined, and the evidence is right there in the sand. The pyramids were not built by slaves. Seasons, especially during the Nile floods when farming was impossible. And move, they signed the blocks. They were proud of their work. Imagine building a monument so perfect that your name survives 4,000 years. But how did they move the stones? The Great Pyramid is made of over 2.3 million blocks. The outer casing limestone came from quarries close to Giza. But the inner granite blocks, but planning, the kind of planning that leaves you speechless, and you know what they didn't even build all year. Let us talk about cutting stone. How did they shape it with precision? They didn't have steel, they had copper and dolerite. A-frames to keep everything straight and aligned, and it worked because the Great Pyramid is aligned almost perfectly to true north. It's off by just 3/60ths of a degree, better than many buildings today. How did they do that? Dolerite is harder than granite. They used it to pound and chip the stone slowly, carefully, patiently. It took time, but they had time, and they used simple tools with unbelievable skill. They built mostly during the off-season, when farmers had nothing to do. They created jobs, they fed families. And they built something that still stands today, especially in the King's Chamber. Came from Aswan, 500 miles away. How did they transport them? They used the Nile and boats. Yes, boats. Ancient Egyptians were master boat builders. Either way, they knew what they were doing. They weren't guessing. This was intentional, methodical, repeatable. They understood geometry, they understood astronomy, and they used it all to serve one purpose: build something that would last forever, some weighing up to 15 tons. We found them in pits, perfectly preserved. They used the river as a superhighway, floating multi-ton stones downstream. This wasn't luck, this was logistics, and every part of the job had a specialist: stonecutters, engineers, cooks, rope makers, planners, supervisors. It was a construction site the size of a city. These weren't random laborers, they were highly organized. They had teams, and each team had a name. Like the Friends of Khufu. This wasn't a slave camp, it was a functioning worker city. And even hospitals, they found animal bones, beer jars, and bread ovens. And these workers were not treated poorly, they were fed beef in large amounts, something rare in ancient Egypt. They drank beer, they ate onions, they were taken care of. That's a lie repeated for centuries. Next to a king, of course not. They were skilled, respected, and they had jobs to do. And it wasn't just a few people building in secret, it was an entire national project. Estimates say 20 to 30,000 workers built the Great Pyramid. The people who built them were workers, real paid workers. They had homes, they had food. They had doctors. Archaeologists found entire villages next to the pyramids, complete with bakeries, tools, and poured water on the sand in front of them. This reduced friction and allowed fewer people to move massive blocks. It's not just a theory, scientists tested it in labs. Wet sand makes dragging easier. This was ancient science, and it worked. Some were even buried with honor near the pyramids. Would you bury slaves? Not hundreds of thousands as people thought. And not all at once. They worked in shifts, rotating during that name is literally written on the stones they carved. And no, they didn't roll them across the desert. They used sleds, real wooden sleds. Not all stones came from nearby. Not chaos, not mystery. They even buried real boats next to the pyramids, running smoothly year after year for decades. 4,500 years later, now, they used levels, plumb bobs. Some say they tracked stars, others say they used shadows. So how did they lift the blocks? These stones weren't placed randomly. Each one fits almost perfectly with the next. There's barely a gap between them even today. That kind of precision takes planning, measurement, and a lot of skill. And they had no cranes. The most likely method is using ramps. Archaeologists believe they built long, straight ramps or spiral ones wrapping around the pyramid, made from mud, brick, limestone, and rubble. As the pyramid grew, they extended the ramp higher, pulling the stones upward step by step. Some ramps may have been taken apart after construction. That's why we haven't found many intact. There's even evidence of post holes and alignment trenches used to guide blocks into position using ropes, wooden sleds, and human power. That we still exploring today. In 2017, scientists used cosmic rays to scan the pyramid and discovered a hidden void above the Grand Gallery. No one knows yet what it holds, but it proves there's more to uncover. And this is still an active field of discovery. Because there are a lot of them, the idea that aliens built the pyramids is one of the most popular and one of the most ridiculous. It disrespects the real genius of ancient Egyptian engineers who left us the evidence. And the truth is more amazing than any alien story. They worked as teams, lifting, guiding, and sliding the blocks into place perfectly every time. The people who built the pyramids were not superhuman, they were just incredibly organized and motivated. They built the impossible with simple tools and teamwork. This wasn't random, it was planned with cosmic purpose. The pyramid is not just a tomb, it's a time machine built in stone. He had architects. The most famous was Pharaoh Khufu's relative and the man believed to be the chief architect of the Great Pyramid. Even the corners of the pyramid are aligned to the cardinal points with incredible accuracy. That's not an accident, it's mastery. His statue was found near Giza, and he looks confident, calm, powerful. It's not filled with treasure, it was never meant to be a treasure vault. It's a symbolic path to the afterlife. He may have drawn the plans, managed the workers, and solved the hardest problems of the ancient world. And we're not just guessing, we found tools, wooden sleds, copper chisels, dolerite pounders, and even graffiti from the workers themselves. They started with the bedrock, they cut down to solid limestone, and then leveled the base. It's been through earthquakes, wars, floods, and yet it still stands. Because it was built to be eternal. They may have used water channels to check levelness, just like how you de-level a floor today. And it worked. The base of the Great Pyramid is nearly perfectly level. Yes, you heard that right, the wheel wasn't widely used for heavy transport in Egypt during pyramid times. These weren't just tombs, they were puzzles. There's a granite sarcophagus inside, carved from a single piece of stone. No inscriptions, no gold, just a symbol of eternity. But the structure itself was the real treasure. And they still challenge us today. But they had boats and ramps and physics and thousands of trained hands. And that was enough. The ascending passage, the Queen's chamber, the Grand Gallery, and the King's chamber, all placed with mathematical precision. The Grand Gallery is over 8 meters high with corbelled ceilings that hold the weight of thousands of tons of stone. Above the King's chamber are 5 relieving chambers built to distribute pressure and prevent collapse. 20 years for over 2 million stones placed with care. That means placing one block every 2 to 3 minutes for decades. Graffiti written inside the pyramid on hidden blocks says things like "Gang of Khufu's drunkards" and "the vigorous gang of the West." This wasn't sacred writing, it was construction team tags. His name was Khufu, also known as Cheops, and he ruled over 4,500 years ago. That's all we found of his image, but the pyramid he left speaks louder than any statue. He wasn't a god, he was a king who commanded resources and labor with skill. And he changed the world. It's over 140 meters tall and was the tallest building on Earth for almost 4,000 years. His reign wasn't very long, only about 23 years. But he left behind the largest stone structure on Earth. They weren't just tombs, they were entire ceremonial landscapes with temples, causeways, satellite pyramids, and even boat pits. It was like building a small city for the dead king. Just like workers today sign walls or beams, these guys did the same. And that's how we know they were proud of what they built. The core had smaller blocks filled in faster, while larger precision blocks were reserved for corners and chambers. And remember, not all stones were massive, they balanced speed with precision. Let's talk about time. The Great Pyramid took around 20 years to build. Sounds impossible, but not if you have thousands of workers rotating in teams with clear organization and full state support. Now here's the part most people miss. The pyramids were part of a massive complex. The Great Pyramid has hidden shafts, chambers, and passages. Some shafts align with stars, others seem to mark solstices or cardinal directions. Now let us talk about myths. We have records, graffiti, tools, boats, ramps, and entire cities built for the workers, everything we need to know the real story. And they did it without the wheel. Let us talk about the king behind the Great Pyramid. We don't have statues of him, we don't have grand stories, just one tiny ivory figure a few inches tall. No modern country could build something that perfect without machines, yet Khufu's people did it with rope, stone, and human hands. But he didn't do it alone, and how did they make sure the pyramid stayed level? That's not luck, that's engineering. They measured, they tested, they adjusted, they cared. Now let us go inside, because what's inside the pyramid is just as impressive as the outside. Inside there's the descending passage. And guess what? We only discovered some of these chambers in modern times using dynamite and crawling through narrow shafts. That's why most treasures were stolen thousands of years ago. The King's chamber is made of huge granite blocks transported from hundreds of miles away, each one polished and placed with care. The pyramid was sealed after the burial, the entrances hidden, the passages blocked. And while many pyramids collapsed, the Great Pyramid survived because it was overbuilt, designed to last forever. Let us talk about what happened after Khufu died. His son Djenefer ruled next and chose to build his pyramid elsewhere, not at Giza. His pyramid is now mostly ruined, but it shows us that even royal sons didn't always follow the same path. Then came Khufu, who built the second Great Pyramid. Khufu's pyramid looks taller, but that's because it's built on higher ground. It's actually slightly shorter, but it's still a masterpiece. And he added something else. It faces the rising sun and may represent Khufu himself. It's over 70 meters long and 20 meters high. The Sphinx, that giant limestone statue with a lion's body and a human face, was carved directly from the bedrock. It connected heaven and earth. The Sphinx is one of the most mysterious monuments in history. Its purpose, age, and meaning are still debated. They look at stone weight distribution, internal chambers, outer casing, and they are amazed. It's not just the size, it's the precision. And that's what makes it legendary. But the truth is more powerful. It holds the story of human ability. Real people, real tools, real sweat. It glowed like a jewel in the desert. And they show just how perfect the original surface was. Humans are capable of incredible things when they work together. That's the truth hidden in plain sight. But what's clear is that it was part of Khufu's pyramid complex, aligned perfectly with his temple and causeway. These weren't disposable laborers, they were supported and respected. Some even had their spines realigned after accidents. Another says they used shadows at noon when the sun is highest. Either way, they had methods and they worked. These were engineers, not just stone movers. It tells us the builders understood time, space, and the earth itself. That kind of knowledge doesn't come from guessing. Back to the Great Pyramid, there are still people today who believe it holds secret codes or alien messages. Even after kings stopped building pyramids, they still honored what they represented. Stability, permanence, divine connection. Later dynasties chose to build tombs in the Valley of the Kings, hidden inside cliffs. Maybe it was to stop robbers, or maybe the old ways lost their power. They're mapping every block, every shaft, every hidden void. Because this monument still speaks. It is only off by a tiny fraction of a degree, which is more accurate than many modern buildings. How did they do that? We have proof in the workers' cemeteries where bones show signs of injuries healed by medical care. A message carved in stone saying we were here, we mattered. We built something greater than ourselves. A silent witness to time. And that's more impressive than fiction. And it's still here. Not with machines or magic, but with hands and hearts. That's the real miracle. Proof that time can't erase everything. A complete vision of death and rebirth. They talk about the king rising to the stars, sailing across the sky, becoming one with the gods. The pyramid was a ladder to the afterlife. And it's still teaching us today. That's not slavery, that's employment, driven by purpose. The people who did this lived, breathed, and died for it. And they left behind a legacy that still stands. This was the ceremonial route from the valley to the pyramid, a final journey for the king. The temple had statues, altars, and inscriptions. Archaeologists found fish bones, cattle bones, and bread remains in the workers' village. That means supply chains were strong. They had food, tools, housing, and schedules. A project bigger than one man or one king. A story of thousands who worked together. And think about this, the pyramid wasn't just for the king, it was for the entire society. It gave work meaning and pride to thousands. Every block laid, every corner aligned, every measurement made was done by hand. No machines, no shortcuts, just skill and vision. Modern engineers study the pyramid to understand how it lasted so long. Even today, no one has built anything like it without modern tools. But here's a fact few know: the pyramid originally had a polished white limestone casing. It reflected sunlight like a mirror. Most of that casing was removed in later centuries to build mosques and buildings in Cairo. But a few casing stones remain at the base. People think the pyramids are full of secrets, but the real secret is this. Let's go deeper into the alignment, because the pyramid is almost perfectly aligned to true north. One theory says they used the stars, especially the ones that rotate around the North Pole. They watch the sky carefully. This means the pyramid is not just a building, it's a compass, a calendar, a statement. And it's not just the Great Pyramid, other pyramids show similar accuracy. There was a system, a pattern, a science. Let's not forget the funerary temple next to the pyramid, connected by a long causeway. And it connected to the Nile Valley, where boats could arrive with goods, people, and priests. This wasn't just construction, it was culture. The pyramid texts, which appeared in later pyramids, showed deep religious ideas. And people believed in it for generations. The pyramids stood as symbols of power, order, and eternity. But here's something interesting: pyramid building didn't last forever. But nothing ever matched the scale of Khufu's pyramid. No structure, no monument. It stood unmatched for 4 millennia. And now scientists are still learning from it using cosmic rays, thermal scans, micro-robots, and satellite imaging. And it tells us humans did this, not gods, not aliens. It was people with tools, plans, and vision. So what does the pyramid really mean? It's not just a tomb, it's a message. Every block, every angle, every chamber was planned. It tells us that with enough will, humans can move mountains, shape stone, and reach the stars. Think about this: the pyramids stood before Rome, before Greece, before the Bible, before paper, before iron, before the wheel. When you stand in front of it, you feel small, but you also feel connected to something huge. They didn't leave behind gold or jewels, they left behind proof. Proof that people can dream, build, and endure. And while we may never know every detail, we know enough to say this: the pyramids were built by people like us. So next time someone tells you it was aliens or magic or mystery, tell them the truth is better. Tell them humans built the pyramids. Not because it was easy, but because it meant something. Because it was sacred, because it was eternal. And they succeeded. Today we still look at those stones and wonder how. But maybe the real question is why. And the answer is simple: to be remembered, to leave something behind, to touch the sky. That's what they did. And they did it forever. And if you made it this far, you now know more about the pyramids than most people ever will. If you enjoyed the journey, give this video a like and subscribe for more untold history. Hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Now tell me in the comments, do you think we've discovered everything about the pyramids, or is there still a secret hidden deep inside waiting to be found?